part that you want to show it.
Okay. God bless you folks tonight. We greet you in the name of the Lord tonight.
Yes.
It's Brother Perry Green at Tucson Tabernacle and Sister Louise from up
Yes.
in British Columbia, Canada. We're going to show that on the screen so they'll be able to
Yes,
see it, but you just have the Bible there so they can see it. And,
I want to say tonight I'm more relaxed than I was the first time. So
good.
I phoned the husband and he said to greet you all for him, and that he went up the highway and told Walter, Rose, and Maggie where I was, and they said, "Oh, we should have went with her." And they said to send greetings, and they appreciate you very much. And Russ said to me, he said, "Are you okay?" He said, "Yes, I'm fine." And he loved to be here.
Did he say you could stay a while?
Pardon?
Is he ready for you to come back home, or did he say you could stay a while?
He said, "You went down there to serve the Lord." He said, "I understand." He said, he wasn't objecting against, no.
It's okay for you to be down here. You have your husband's permission.
Yes.
You got a good Christian husband.
Go to Tucson Tabernacle, he said, with my blessing, he said. And tell them to pray for us, he said.
All right. Let's begin tonight maybe by showing the pictures. Then Louise can tell us who it is. Then as we talk about these people, you'll know who they are. I don't know what order you've got them in.
Oh.
So we're going to put them up on project them on a new screen tonight. Can we do that? Or am I getting ahead of myself? They're already there? Where's mine? I can't see.
Oh, that Grizzly Summit right there.
Okay, this little button right here.
You have to understand, I'm shaking.
Okay.
This is Brother Branham. Here's Grizzly Summit right here, up here. This valley, it's called Grizzly Summit. This one here, Brother Branham is standing in front of this hill. It goes up here. Out this is called Seven Roaring Mountains. My brothers used to sing the song, and I forgot the tune to it. I think this is the caribou he killed.
Bring me another chair. I got to sit over there so I can turn around and look at that. I have a different name for that mountain.
The outfit that has it now, it's called Heliporty.
Yeah. Well, I was on a hunting trip with Brother Branham at that place, and we climbed that mountain back there.
Yes.
And when I got through with it, I called it Fat Man's Misery.
Oh. Well, you remember he preached 7 church ages. Okay, if you climb this this Seven Roaring Mountain hill, out this where there's 7 mountains standing like this in a row.
Yes.
Yes. And I was testifying to Dan Clemency and Vicky one day, and he said, "Perhaps I should fly you over there, and someday we'll get the testimony," he said. So we hadn't gotten around to it. But this hunting area, it's what Art Thompson has this hunting area now. This one here.
Mr. Thompson has a hunting area now.
Yes, he has.
Hand me that pointer there, please. I'll give you all some testimony.
Okay.
When I hunted with Brother Branham here, what we did is when we went up this hill, over on the other side, we saw a caribou laying on a mound on the other side, and all the others gave us their lunch, and Dennis and I went down the hill, and I killed a 39-inch caribou, and we packed it back out. And we got back about midnight, and we took the 25 pounds of meat we brought back and laid it on the refrigerator, that right there. And the next morning we got up, the dogs had got it. And we went around and found it, and Brother Branham trimmed the dog chewings off of it, and that's what we ate for lunch that day. So I wanted you to know what kind of a man he really was, you know. But this is the 42-inch caribou horns here. I was not on this particular trip, but that's the horns of the 42-inch caribou that he had killed the year before when he was there. But This tent is the same one they used, and that we used it on the same trip. There's a lot of wonderful things happened there, and our sleeping tent was over on this side, and we slept there. But I was just talking to Sandra before this. We came in here tonight because we had a dartboard set up in front of this tent, and when we got snowed in, well, that's all we could do is just play dart games, and that's where I noticed that Brother Branham, every time he threw the darts, he hit the bullseye, unless he was playing a game against one of us. And he would never win a game if he was playing one of us. And I noticed that when he's playing by himself, he could put them in the bullseye. But when he's playing us, he would always lose the game. And that's when I asked him, Brother Branham, why don't you win? And he said, Brother Green, if there's any pleasure in winning, why don't I give it to you? And he taught me from the book of Galatians, that's the spirit of emulation, that people are competitive and they think they just got to win. But Brother Branham's attitude is if there's any joy in winning, why not give it to you? His joy wasn't in winning. His joy was just playing the game. And I also noticed that some days we got snowed in, we'd be inside the tent where it was warm. And if I happened to be outside and Brother Branham would come out the tent, the mountain was covered with snow the year I was there. And I have some pictures of that. But I noticed that every time Brother Branham came out of the tent, there'd always be a whirlwind up here on top of this mountain. And so I got my camera, an 8mm, and I stood outside, and others came out of the tent, and I took it, and it never happened. But every time Brother Branham came out of that tent, that whirlwind came on top of that mountain. And I have that on film. And we've converted into 16mm, and I think now it's on video. And I told Sandra today that we need to make that available to the public, because to me, I believe that was a supernatural sign to me while I was there. So, excuse me if I horn in on your testimony, but it's also real to me.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love to hear this too.
Thank you. The next one.
Oh, there it is.
That is the caribou with the 42-inch horns. Mm-hmm. And they measured it from there, around here, and up to there. And they're still 42 inches. Last time I measured them a few years ago, they did not shrink. They stayed 42 inches. And the strange part about this one is that when Brother Branham saw it, usually a caribou has got a horn over the nose here that's like a shovel. But you see, this one's got more of a point out over his face. Now that makes him much more dangerous to fight other animals too, because it's instead of it being a spade-like, he's got a point that he would fight with. Next. That's still another shot of the same.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, yes. That is the silver-tip grizzly bear. Yeah. Louise has told us something about that, but let me explain to you what a silver-tip is. See, Brother Brown says there's three kinds. There's the brown, and then there's the black. But what makes him a grizzly is because he has this hump on his back there. But this one is old enough that he's turned white on the top, and that's what makes him a silver-tip grizzly. And in the tapes, Brother Brown talks about the sunlight reflecting off of him, see, because of the gray that's in there. And Brother Branham stepped it off for me from there to there. It was 9 foot. And this is the rug that he had me stand in the middle of in Jeffersonville when he put his arms around and prayed for me in 1964. The same prayer that he'd prayed 14 years before when I was 16 years old, standing behind the city auditorium in Beaumont, Texas, when I picked him up and put him over in the car. Now, Sister Louise, you got something to tell us about this bear I never had heard before.
The family was camped in that same area you just seen the first picture there. And at that time I was 7. And
you were 7 years old.
George, Eddie, and I were playing. So Mom said she sent us down to check my dad's trap. He was trying to trap a groundhog out of the hole.
Had traps set, okay. Mm-hmm.
So in the meantime, this grizzly was coming to the camp because the mountain was higher than where we were. The camp was on the slope. So Mom told us, come on back up here, she told us. So we all ran back up there, but she didn't tell us there was danger near. And my sister Elsie was in a camp. She's got a baby, was only 3 months old. So when Mom went back up the hill after Dad and Joe, they went to meet the grizzly, and Mom said, "What are you kids doing here?" They said, "Get back to the campfire." But we told her we want to see what's going on, and Mom said, "There's a clay up there," which clay means in our land with bear. Huh? And Mom said the danger when they shot, he said.
Your mother was saying in your native tongue that there's a bear up there. Okay?
There's a bear up there. She said clay is up there, which is a grizzly. Anyway, there's most of you who have been in the mountains, I don't know. There's a clay, it's black. Yeah? It's coming down on the slope of the mountain here, and the bear was coming down this way. The camp was right here. And Joe and Dad and Mom, they were looking at the grizzly to see what action it's going to have. All of a sudden, the bear, this one here, disappeared right before their eyes. 13 years later, the prophet shot it. Now, that sounds incredible. The 3 elders I have that are still living that saw that happen.
Three men are still living that saw that.
Yes.
Now that was in 1951. You were 7 years old.
Yes.
You were born in 44, and that would have been 51. And your family felt they saw this bear.
Yeah, we've
now,
seen the
do you people know
same
enough bears to be able to tell them apart?
Yes, we could.
I want you to understand that point.
Yes.
See, these Indians, they would have recognized a bear.
Yes.
It'd be like you could tell one horse from another and one cow from another.
Because where did the bear go? In the mountains, Brother Perry, you've been up there. It's all buckbrush, you would call it.
Yes.
And it's all like a desert. You could see everywhere. Where did the bear go?
Well, I have 46 pages of quotes there that I've read 3 times in the past 10 days. And whenever Brother Branham kills the caribou, in the vision he said between where he killed the caribou and back to camp, he would kill this bear. And Bud told him when he killed the caribou, he said, "Brother Branham, I can see everything. There's nothing but caribou moss. And there's no bear here." And they start down the hill, and then they notice that Brother Ed Biscoe has on a green checkered shirt, which was in the vision. And you know, wherever this message is preached, Brother Biscoe is known as the man with the green checkered shirt, which when Brother Branham had told the vision a few nights before, nobody had a green checkered shirt. Brother Biscoe didn't know that Sister Ruth had packed one. And he fell in the creek and got wet. And while they were up getting the caribou, he changed shirts. And then they look down and they see Brother Biscoe with a green checkered shirt on. And at the time they put it on, they never even realized it. But Brother Branham looked and said, "Well, there's the man with the shirt. Here's the caribou." And Bud said, "But Brother Branham, I can see for a mile. There's no bear." So they started down the hill, and I can read you the quote where Brother Branham told Bud. He said, "Bud, you know, there was a time when Abraham needed a sacrifice. And Jehovah Jireh provided him a ram." Now, I tell you this because sometimes we in this message, we don't realize what God has really done for us. And Brother Branham tells him, he said, "Bud, you don't doubt it, do you?" He said, "God's able, just create one." And they walk down the hill. They get about a half a mile from camp. "Well, Brother Branham, there's no bear. I can't see one. There's not one." And Brother Branham turned and looked at me and he said, "Bud, what's that sitting up there?" From where they had just come from. And when I was there with them, Brother Branham sat down on the ground, just like he was a grizzly bear. Now they don't walk around grazing like a cow. They go in the berry patch and they just sit down on their haunches and they take their big claws and they just strip the berries with their claws like this and eat it. And Brother Branham was sitting there like that, eating those, just imitating that bear. And that's where I learned it. I didn't know a bear ate like that. I thought he picked berries like we did, one at a time. But he just used them big old claws like a sifter and just scraped them off of there. And I happened to, my first trip to Jeffersonville in August of 1964, Brother Branham had just got this bear from a taxidermist and had put it in the den in Jeffersonville. And that's the day that Brother and Sister Jackson and I sat for 4 hours in the den with Brother Branham, and he sat there and told us the story of the caribou, the bear. Now, I'd heard about the caribou and the bear on tape. I'd heard all the times of the spoken word, but I had the privilege to hear Brother Branham tell them that day and act them out for us. When he slid out of his chair and got out on the floor like he was taking a nap in the forks of an ash tree, I said, "Prophet?" And I thought to myself, I'm either listening to a prophet of God or this man's the biggest deceiver I've ever listened to. And Louise, he stops. Mm-hmm. He looks over at me on the other side of the room and says, "Brother Green, don't think like that." Now, that'll change your life.
Yes, it did mine too, because
now, you had some
that
experience.
nerves.
Your experience when he first came up to see your mom, she had heart trouble.
Yes.
And you were not at home. Tell us what happened.
I was in a field with my sister Rose. We were cutting hay with a knife called machete. It's something like a sword, only it's got a handle and it's long. So we're cutting it like this. And in the meantime, we didn't know where Oscar was, and and Joe was coming from his cabin to cross the field, and he stopped midway. And Angus was coming out of Billy's cabin, and Oscar got a hunter with him, it looks like. We couldn't see that. It was about 2.5 miles, I see. And all I could see was they were going like this. They were going like this. And Joe yelled at Angus and said, what they want. And he said, "They want Louise," he said. And he turned to me and said, "I think you know." He said, "They're calling you," he said. And so I thought, gee, why did Oscar brought a hunter and he want me to come and see what he was doing? Because in our family, a women, girls, they're not allowed to speak to a man. So I was horrified.
Good doctrine.
Because Oscar would have object, but he wants Mom to be healed.
Brother Branham had come to your camp to pray for your mom, who was sick with a heart problem. Yes. And you and the others were in the field cutting hay.
Cutting hay.
Now, your mom couldn't speak English.
No, she couldn't speak English.
And Brother Branham, by discernment, said, "Call Louise."
Yes. And Lila never told him. And I thought, I walked up to him and he told me, "Hi," he said. And I kind of looked down, and because I was a Catholic, of course. And anyway, he said, "My name's William Branham." He said, "I pray for the sick." And at that time, it didn't mean anything to me. It just, I just want to get it over with, Anyway, I didn't know this was the beginning of my life. I didn't know it at that time. Anyway, we went into the cabin. Dad was sitting by Mom, and I thought Mom passed away because she could barely keep her eye open. She was like this. And we were standing at the foot of the bed, and Dad in the cabin has a cardboard box. And when the vision come to Brother Branham, I thought he was reading something one of my brothers scribbled on.
On the wall?
On the wall. Because I never heard of vision. I never seen, this is the first time I saw him, and I didn't know what I was, getting into. Anyway, he said, he was looking on the wall, and he said, "A big city." He said, "Her daughter is going to the big city," and I knew he meant me. And he said, "She's going in to be a nurse," he said. Before time, in my heart, I always want to be head nurse or to work in an operating room.
And your family didn't know you had these thoughts?
No, I didn't.
This is something you planned to do without your parents knowing?
Without their knowing it. We were just going to make up story and say, oh, I'm going to get a job and I'll take off for this training. Huh? This is what my plan was.
Now, from the time you were 5 until you were 13, the government had sent you to a boarding school.
To residential school,
to teach you the white ways,
yes,
and to teach you English so you could bring the culture back to your parents.
Yes, that's
and
right.
In the meantime, you're home, and do you know how old you were then? People asked me, and I didn't.
I think maybe it was 20. Who is good at
Well, was
math?
it 60 or 61 that this happened?
This was 63, wasn't it, when he came that time?
Okay, okay, 63, because I met you in 64. Okay.
Okay, this was September 12th. I thought that's what it was, because in northern British Columbia, the Grizzly does not open until September 15th.
So he told your parents you were planning on going away to Vancouver.
No, he didn't tell them. He was telling
telling
me.
you, but they heard that.
Yeah, they heard that. And also, back in my younger years, I was going to marry this rancher. And I thought, oh, I'm going to be a head nurse. I'm going to, was just planning. This was deep in here. I thought nobody knew. And here he was pulling it out of me by discernment. And he was looking at the wall and he said, you're going away to be a nurse. And also the man you had in mind, he said, he's not for you, he said. And right there, my dreams come crushing around me. I thought, this is over, but I didn't. You don't dare cry out that way when you're standing in the presence of the angel. You sure don't. Isn't it, Brother King? Yeah. And those thoughts were gone. They just dismissed my mind like that.
Now, before she was born, her father had agreed with a friend of his that her father...
That horse I was standing by,
Yeah, her father had... The horse that we're going to show you, the mother of that horse was well trained by her father. We said this on the first one, but we need to review for this second one. And there were 7 brothers that got stranded on an island in the river, and her father, with his trained horse, commanded this horse to go into the river, rescue the men, and the horse made 7 trips, went in and got the men. And one of those men came out and said to her dad, if we ever have children, we need to have them get married. And so before she was born, she was pledged by her custom of her tribe to marry this man's son, which he was a boy, and that man had a son, and her father had a girl. And so she grew up all her life pledged to this man. And in their tribe, that's law. Now, at this time, this boy was there, and he wasn't living right. And this is when Brother Branham said, the man is not the man for you.
You had in mind, it's not for you.
And at 17, he drowned. Yeah. But she still felt obligated later on in life. And that Brother Branham told you something about if you'll be a nurse?
Be a nurse for the Lord, he said. Because, and I didn't know at that time what he meant, but he said, be his nurse. He said, here's Brother Branham. He said, Louise is a good nurse. Louise is a good nurse, he said.
Louise is a good nurse?
Yes.
But take care of your parents?
To take care of my parents.
And what was the reward?
A wonderful, he said, when it comes to that time, he said, may it be one of his servants, he said. Now, at that time, Russ was not serving God. But he agreed, like when he knew what I believed, but he said, you can go to church, you can do that. He was used to be a Catholic, but he worked in the oil and gas company. I guess you might say knowledge went to his head, and he thought he was just it. I don't mean to criticize him, but the man thought he was somebody, and he was prejudiced toward natives.
Prejudice to the natives, okay.
Yes, he was married to his first wife named Lel. They got 2 wonderful girls. So, anyway,
What year did you get married?
19 something. Oh, imagine forgetting your wedding. Anyway, Lel went on, and so Russ was single, and I was still single. I didn't intend on marrying, I was just with my girlfriends, and Jeannie said to me, my girlfriend that I always go visit, she said, he liked you, I said, I know. I said, but I don't like his way that he's drinking and he's, running around. And 2 years later, we did get married, and he was still unbeliever. And then as time went on, he came into the message. And I don't know who testified to him, and I don't know what happened there.
You never did become a nurse, though, huh?
No, I never did become a nurse.
Except taking care of your parents.
Taking care of the parents, he said, be a nurse for the Lord Jesus Christ, he said. And so it means, like, say, your word does like medicine, it's something like that. So had been helping people by the grace of God, like, were kind to them and talk to them, visit them in their home and everything. And maybe that's what he meant. I've been seeking, what he meant by be a nurse for the Lord. I don't know what he meant.
Well, I can't think of a better one than taking care of your parents, because it even says you honor your mother and father and your days to be prolonged.
He said, well, if you look after your mom and dad, God will give you a wonderful man, he said. And there was a question that come up there because there's oil and gas up there. And he phoned me because of the generation book. He worked for the oil and gas, and his name was George. And he was praising Russ. He said, aren't you lucky, he said, to have this, to have her for a wife? And Russ said, what do you mean? He said, well, Brother Branham said that the man that married her will be a Christian too. Just like that, out of the blue, like that.
Because he knew that. He read that.
Mm-hmm. He read the generation book. But George is a Christian, but his wife is not. So she was in Winnipeg somewhere. And Russ asked him, he said, where's your wife? He said, oh, she must be home. He said, she doesn't believe, she's not a Christian. He said, she rebelled against this message, he said. And he said to Russ, he said, if I got a wife like you have, he said, I'll be very happy man, he said. And I thought, thank God. Now Russ heard something now. That's when the Lord was working on him. God was merciful to him. He was bringing him in slowly. But now today, he is... he listened to the tape, he's studying the word, he's just waiting to be baptized. Yes.
Lord willing,
thank God for your prayers.
We're going to try to take care of that.
Yes.
Let's see another picture. See what's next. Now, tell us who these are.
That's Brother Branham and Oscar.
That's Oscar.
Yeah.
That's Brother Branham.
That's Brother Branham.
The same tent in a different location. That's Bud Southwick over there. Now, this is a hunt where the boys took one of Brother Bud's best horses off to bring a caribou back into camp, and it smelled of bear and spooked. And they came back and told Brother Bud they'd lost his horse. Now, that horse was worth about $800 then. That was a lot of money because it was a horse that was well trained. It would pack a stove on her back, without being spooked. And Bud was very unhappy about losing the horse. And the Lord gave Brother Branham a vision. And he told Bud, he said, Bud, I don't know when it'll be, but I saw you take a halter and go catch the horse. And in just a few minutes in this camp, they heard, Arr! Now, you don't know what that is. That's a horse.
We're calling.
Now, if you go to a church where the pastor says, Days of Miracles over, that's the thing of divine healing, that's a donkey. But this one went, Arr! And Bud took the halter and went and found his horse. And while he's gone, Oscar tells Brother Branham, you prophet, me lose horse. You tell me where horse is. Referring to the scripture where Saul told Samuel where the donkeys were. And Brother Branham asked Oscar, Oscar, do you believe? Yes. And Brother Branham prayed, and he said, Oscar, all I do is I see your horse and some others in the snow. And that summer, that winter passed. Oscar didn't find his horse. The summer came. Brother Branham says on these tapes that Oscar wrote him a letter to Jeffersonville. Somebody did, and said we didn't find the horse. And Brother Branham wrote back and said, all I did is I saw your horse and others in the snow. Oscar, listen to his simplicity. Prophets say horse in snow, me go where snow is. Yes. So he went higher into the mountains at that time of the year in the summer where the snow was, and he found his horse and some others. And that fall, when I went up there hunting with Brother Branham and I were standing in front of Bud Southwick's tent. Brother Branham looks out across the opening is coming. He said, here comes Oscar's sister, Louise, riding that black horse I saw. And that's where I met Louise. Yes. When she came up there. Let's see what the next picture is. Didn't mean to steal. Now, there's the picture I took.
Yes.
That's Louise when she's about 20. And Brother Branham was with us in the back horse, and I took the picture. But
that horse name is Ada.
Ada?
Ada, eagle.
Eagle?
Yes.
In your language?
Yes.
How do you spell it?
Ada.
ADA?
Yes. In case we have some university people here, we might spell it wrong. Hopefully they would correct us.
The horse. Yeah. The name of the horse was Eagle in English.
Yeah, Eagle. But in our language, it's called Ada.
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 Always say it, Ada.
Ada.
Eagle.
Eagle.
What a horse. Was it male or female? Do you know?
That's a female.
It was a female.
Yes.
Now, it was her mother that
it's
was
the one that,
the trained horse that your dad sent across the river to rescue the other end.
Yes, that black mare. They call him black mare. And Brother Branham, the night that year I rode out with him, he was riding a horse named Midnight.
Midnight.
Midnight or Night?
Night.
Yeah, Night. And black mare, she rescued 7 men from drowning. And those of you who go up on Alaska Highway, the river, it's called Racing River. It's mile 419. The river's still there. For witness, it's still there. Yes, where black mare rescued her life to save those 7 men.
At the command of your father?
Yes. And these men are from North Dakota.
Okay. Let's see the next one. Now, this is a Bible that Brother Branham sent Louise. It was new when you got it.
Yes, but it was falling apart.
Yeah, I understand.
Well, there's a story behind it.
Okay.
When Mom went to be with the Lord, my sisters, they stole it. They thought it belonged to her. So Lucy had it. Lucy, in turn, gave it to Elsie. Elsie's my oldest sister, and she has 3 boys and a girl. And as long as this Bible was in her house, she was blessed. The Lord blessed her in every way.
Let's turn the page on it if we can.
Oh, there it is.
Now, that is Brother Branham's handwriting. And that is Louise MacDonald's Bible. So your sister wound up with it when your mother died.
Yes.
And it was in her home. And you say there was a blessing.
Yes, she was blessed. The Lord honored her for her.
Then how'd you get it back?
Well, she's got a daughter named Wanda. If Wanda's listening to this, I don't mean to say it, but truth is truth. So Wanda said, when she went up there, I said, Wanda, does your mom have the Bible? She's seen this. She said, oh, I know what it looks like. I'll look, she said. And 2 days later, she come back. She said, yes, it's there, she said. And she said, I'll tell you what. She said, I'll steal it back for you, she said.
I don't think that's stealing. I think that's just possessing the land.
And she did. She got it back for me. And I don't know, every time the weather turned bad or something, Elsie know this is God's word. So this is why the Bible is kind of damaged. She leave it out like this because God could see His word, and He would change the weather for her. And every time she thought that whatever she desired, it happened. And her Rose was living next door. Rose and Maggie, they lived together. So they thought Elsie was casting a spell on them. But they didn't know that God answered prayers. Yes.
You have to understand that these people were raised in a lot of traditions and customs and superstitions and so forth. But you know, God honored those things. Mm-hmm. It's like I told the last time when Brother Branham got down and bathed himself in smoke with those Indians in South Africa. And Brother Jackson questioned, what are you doing? Brother Branham told him, he said, they believe that there was a spirit that protected their forefathers, and they want that same spirit to come protect them. And Brother Branham told Brother Jackson, it's just like when the men went to the river and said, where is the God of Elijah? Yeah. Well, excuse me, folks, but there's times when I call on the God of Brother Branham. And Brother Branham told Brother Jackson to pray to the God that's within you. And I believe that Brother Branham served the true and living God. And so I don't hesitate to say that I serve the same God that William Branham served. And when these people did this, God honored that. Mm-hmm. That was faith that maybe they didn't know what it was. But Brother Branham said it's the sincerity of the heart that it takes to make it work that way. So God bless that. Is there any other pictures of that Bible that was there? Let's see if there was. I thought there was.
There's a rainbow.
All right, now this is a mountain that's there in the area, and you can see the rainbow. This one the other night we couldn't see it in the black and the white. But tell us, Louise, where this rainbow is. And it appears daily.
Yes, it appears daily. Even Russ testified about this right here. Right here is where the Indian prophet lived. I'd say maybe 500 years ago, before the civilization. And Mom wasn't born.
There was an Indian camp here.
Yeah, Indian camp
was occupied by the Indians, and in there was an elderly man that was considered a prophet by those Indians.
And he prophesied among his people that there is coming among you a prophet, liken unto me, he tells them, and said, before Jesus returns back to earth.
And this rainbow appears?
Every morning to honor the prophet, what he said.
That's what your people believe.
And his name is Clay Choshi. Clay Choshi. The prophet's name was Clay Choshi E.
Okay.
Now, who has the... Now, I couldn't spell it. I don't know.
Does that have a meaning in English?
It means the swift one. Clay Choshi means in our language the swift one.
The swift one.
The swift one.
Okay, the swift one. Now,
yes.
What was the results whenever he prophesied there'd be a prophet?
Well,
the people believed it. Yeah,
the people believed it, and each when the in the camp, the little boys were born to them. Each mother thought, well, maybe that's him. Huh? So they dedicate the little boys by sending them into the wilderness.
Listen to this. 4 or 5 years old.
4 or 5 years old.
They would send them into the wilderness
alone to get revelation for themselves. Like some would say, an owl will pluck his feather and threw that down for me, and the boy will pick it up. And he could only tell his dad only. And they'll look for an interpreter in the camp and say, what mean is this? What kind of life he's supposed to live? This is what they go out in the wilderness for. So,
in the danger with the bears and the wolves and
Well, we didn't fear that because if God sent them, He would protect them. Yes. And I don't know what they did for food. 4 or 5-year-old boy alone in the wilderness. I don't know. Maybe the mother tried to teach it to pick berries, things like that.
Because she knew their little boy had to go.
Yes.
And every little boy they did this because they were looking for a prophet.
They were looking for the one that says there is coming a prophet among you before the coming of the Lord Jesus Christ.
Well,
and when Lila testified to Oscar and said, there's a man that prays for the sick, and he's coming from the United States. And he also lay hands on people and they get well. And when Mom heard that, he said, could this be the one? Could this be the one?
Because the tribe was expecting somebody.
Yeah, when I was standing there by him, that's what he was talking. He was interpreting that back to me because Mom told me that story. Because I didn't ask him how did he saw me in a vision or anything. He said he doesn't sleep to get these things. He said it by revelation, he said. And also he said like he broke into my thought this was him and I were just talking when I was standing there by the horse. And then all of a sudden he said, sister, he went like this, he said, I'll never forget down at the Ohio River when the angel of the Lord told him as John the Baptist was sent, so will your...
That's what he told me when I turned and said, Brother Branham, I perceive you to be a prophet.
Yes, he told me the same thing. And that's when I say I lost my mind. I don't know. Everything just went blank. If I got any plan, they died right there. So I was a different person when I went back to the camp. I was so high on, I don't know what it was, like I was walking on a cloud or something, and Mom thought I was sneaking a drink from my brother. So he had Rose to check all my stuff, He said, and Rose said I was with her all the time. He said, I didn't see any liquor. And he said, she's even staggering around. He said, I know she has something somewhere. And Oscar, who was listening to all this, said, he said, Mom, he said, you wanted somebody to talk to her, didn't you? He said, the prophet did, and it fixed her for good, he said.
Amen.
Yes.
Now, does this rainbow still appear?
Yes, it does. Yes.
Still an anointed place, huh?
Yes, it's still in anointed.
How far is this from where Brother Branham was?
Well, just 2 miles. It's in a park now. You can go there, drive up there, and walk around.
You can go to this spot now?
Yes, you can go to that spot. There's a road there. Yeah, it's a park now.
Well, is it part of that area that Brother Branham prayed, Lord, let me live here during the millennium?
That was in Grizzly Summit.
Okay.
Yeah, that was in Grizzly Summit.
How far is that from this place?
I'm not too good at mileage, brother. How far would Grizzly Summit be? Now, this is near the road, where Buck Camp is.
Okay.
So, if you have to ride horses to get into the mountains, so how far would that be?
About 15 miles.
About 15, maybe I'd say 20 miles.
Okay. Well, it's in the same area, though.
In the same
it's
area.
It's in the Toad River, Alaska Highway.
On Alaska
That's mile
Highway.
442.
Yes.
And the river...
And the place where Brother Branham shot the grizzly, the creek is called Groundhog Creek.
Groundhog Creek.
Yeah. Ahead of that Groundhog Creek is Grizzly Summit, because Groundhog Creek got 3 creeks running into it. There's the main Toad, West Toad, and Groundhog Pass.
Main Toad, West Toad, and
Groundhog Pass.
Groundhog Pass.
Yeah, Groundhog.
That's where the water drains off of that particular area into the Toad River?
Into the Toad River, yes.
And that's sort of the way Bud's territory was laid out.
Yes.
All the water that drained from that mountain into the Toad River.
Into the Toad
West
River,
of the Alcon Highway, all the way to the Pacific, was Bud's hunting territory.
Yes.
And that's where the grizzly, the caribou,
and
the other bear that Brother Branham saw, all of them
yes,
born,
it's
raised,
all
are
in
created
that
there.
same. Yes, they were all created there.
And that's where your family lived.
Yes, the night, the day I went to see the prophet, I didn't even know he was there. I had a dream, and the dream said to me, it says, I don't know who was talking to me because it was dark in the cabin. I couldn't see because Rose was laying over here, I was over here. And this dream says, I never read a Bible in them days. I didn't even know what it looked like. We were forbidden to have them because I was a Catholic. This voice said, it showed me, you remember where Brother Branham was waiting for me at the foot of a hill when I thought you guys were way ahead. I was trying to rein this horse back because she's got a bad habit of kicking and biting other strange horses. So that's why I didn't want to go near, let him go, her go near the other horses. So as I was going on the trail, and there was Brother Branham waiting for me. You were with him, were you? And this dream said to me, it says, Romans 10, Romans 10, 8 to 11, it says, when you awake, he said, read this.
Romans chapter 10, verses
8 to 10 to 11. I didn't have the Bible then. So we'll have Brother Green write what's written in there. That was.
You've, you got it open there.
Yes.
That if thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus, and shalt believe in thine heart that God hath raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. For with the heart man believeth unto righteousness, and with the mouth confession is made unto salvation. For the Scripture saith, whosoever believeth on him shall not be ashamed. 9, 10, 11 of Romans 10.
8 to 11.
Okay, but what saith it? The word is nigh thee, even in thy mouth and in thine heart. That is the word of faith which we preach.
Yes.
And that's the Lord. A voice spoke and told you that.
Yes, it
like
said,
in a dream.
Yes.
And then
it
when
said, this man I was about to write with that day. I don't know to this day what the meaning of this is, or what is the word is nigh thee, even in thy mouth and in thine heart, in the word of faith that which we preach. And when we come there, and Mom was talking to Brother Branham, she was healed, and Dad come out to see him. This got something to do with it. Anyway, Brother Branham was talking to Mom and said, Sister, you're healed now. And she said, yes. And she said, now we can die happy because we have seen, like say the Lord Christ, she said. Now we have seen his prophet, she said. She was talking in Indian. Brother Branham heard her speak in English.
Understand this. Her mother said this in the Indian tongue. Can you say that to us in the Indian tongue? Now let's.
Mom done zegi tu rasta I nache de zegi needed sal.
And Brother Branham understood it in English.
Understood it in English. And when he talked to her, when he told her, Sister, how you're healed and how you're doing, she heard him speak in Indian.
In the Beaver language.
In Beaver language. And Ankis, who was standing there, said to Brother Branham after they were talking about the Holy Ghost, and said, Brother Branham, he said, when we're living far in the bush, he was concerned about that in them days. Dad used to get sick out in the wilderness. And he said, what shall we do? Because we can't just run and get a priest because he's so far and he might die between them and he. like I said, he's very stern with me, very strict. It's like you mothers know how you have to constrain your 2-year-old or something like that. That's the way he was with me. He was awfully strict with me. He turned to me and said, "You speak the word," he said. At that time, I didn't know what it meant. But before I wrote out with him, Romans chapter 10, verses 8 to 11. And I never read that. I dismissed it from my mind. Later on, Lila and I read that. And she said, "You got to get a minister to interpret this to you." And I said, "What does it mean?" He said, "It just means what it says," she said. Because she was a strict Christian too. She was she was a real believer. And so was Brother...
You're talking about Lila Southwick?
Yeah, I'm talking about Lila Southwick.
Okay, now
yes.
Lila was a very small woman.
Yes.
But her husband, Bud, was a cowboy.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd become a game guide.
Yes.
Up there in the territory.
In territory,
and they were friends of Brother Biscoe's. Mm-hmm. And that's how Brother Branham got acquainted with them to come.
Oh, that was, yeah.
To come to Bud, mm-hmm. Bud being a guide, had offered Brother Branham a hunt. And Brother Branham says in a quote that he said he offered me a free hunt, and he said, "I'll take anything free. I'm always having something free." So he went up there, and that's when they told him about your mother being sick.
Yes.
And he wanted to come pray for her. Mm-hmm. But on one of the trips, Brother Branham found out that one of Bud's brothers, now what was his name that had the epilepsy?
Curtis.
Curtis was his name.
Yes.
I've always thought it was Ted, but
Ted,
you said Curtis, okay.
Yes. Curtis, they call him.
Okay.
Yes.
And he had seizures.
Mm-hmm.
And Brother Bud mentioned it to Brother Branham, and they were riding up the trail with the pack horses, Bud leading and Brother Branham in the back. They said they had a bunch of young horses, and some of them got off into muskeg.
Oh.
Now mm-hmm. in the books, it says they got off in mesquite. And I learned today that it's not mesquite, because they don't have mesquite up there, but it's muskeg.
It's muskeg.
And she tells us that it's like a bog.
Yes.
Brother Branham said something like quicksand. And this horse got off in this muskeg, and he jumped in there and tied a rope around it, and the other horses pulled him out. And after he got that straightened out, then he said the Lord showed him Curtis with one of these seizures, and he caught up with Bud and told him, said, "I got a word for the Lord. The next time your brother has a seizure, take his shirt off of him and throw it in the fire." And so Bud tells the family that and tells Lila. And the day comes when Curtis is at the house with Lila alone, and he has a seizure. And Brother Branham says she jumps right straddle of him and tears his shirt off of him and throws it in the fire. And he never had another seizure. Now, I didn't see Curtis, but I did see Lila. I saw the cabin where it happened. I saw the stove the shirt was burned in. Yes. But it's something, just an act of faith. It's like a prayer cloth. No healing in that, but it inspires that faith. I'll tell you something that I haven't told you, but I think you'll appreciate. You remember Lila had developed arthritis very bad.
Yes, I've seen that. Yes.
And they used to come down here in the wintertime some, to enjoy the mm-hmm. warmer weather. She and Bud came in either a pickup or a camper or a motorhome or something. They'd stay out of the house. And one year, Bud and Lila came through, and they came through the Edmonton area up there, and there was a couple up there that had arthritis real bad. And when Bud and Lila got to the house, the couple, to her surprise, come bounding out of the house to help her get out of the car. "Well, what happened to you people?" she asked. And they told Lila about going down to Mexicali to see a Mexican doctor down there that gave them Laetrile. And Lila, when she got down there, she wanted to know if I would make arrangements to take her to Mexico. And Brother Vernon Harris is sitting back there, took us over there in a private airplane, and we went across the border, and Lila saw this doctor. This doctor and his father gave Lila a shot of Laetrile in her back where it hurt. He didn't ask, who's your grandfather, who's this, who's that. So, where do you hurt? I got arthritis. So where did it start? Right here. So he laid her down, pulled her blouse up, gave her a shot, come out there and gave her 6 months supply of pills, which the first 30 days it had Laetrile in it, and I don't know what the other 6 months was. But Bud and Lila came back across the border. I went to the drugstore and paid $126 for the pills. And came back. Brother Vernon Harris flew the 4 of us back here, those 3 and himself, back here. And Lila at our house took those pills, and in 3 days, I saw her hands become like this. Just, and everybody's telling, well, that'll kill you. That's got side effects, that Laetrile. And here's what I told Lila, sitting in that office with her in that doctor's office there waiting. And when we got there that morning, there was over 100 people in that waiting room. And they gave her a number and told her her appointment would be about 3 o'clock that afternoon. So we come back across the border, went to the motel to get some rest, and went back over there about 2 o'clock. And I sat down. There was 45 people still in the waiting room, and some of them was Catholic nuns. There was a man there from Texas, and like me, I asked, I said, have you been here before? Oh, this is my 4th trip. Well, first time I came up here, I couldn't even move my neck. I was like this. Look here, what I can do now. And I had a testimony meeting going on in that waiting room. And about every 3 or 4 minutes, that doctor would come to the door and call a name or a number, and they'd go in there, stay 3 or 4 minutes, and come out. And I told Lila, I said, Lila, he's doing something to help these people. And Brother Branham said, if you got confidence in anybody, they can help you. And I said, so let's pray now and believe that whatever he's going to do is going to help you. And Lila and I prayed like that, and she goes in there and she comes out, and I said, what do you do? She said, well, I only had a needle about this big, about that big around. And it was probably like a syringe you give a horse, you know. But what he did is he gave her a massive dose of Laetrile, because I went back over there 4 times after that to get her this 6 month supply of pills. And I got very well acquainted with this Dr. Joseph over there. And got to where I could call him on the phone, and he'd mail me a prescription. I could go over there and get them, or down here at Nogales and pick them up without that. FDA didn't approve them here in America. So they were considered a quack medicine. But Lila told me that 3rd or 4th day when she moved like this, she said, Brother Green, this stuff may kill me, but I'd rather have 6 months like this than 20 years like this.
Yes.
And I saw that happen. And I've told this story because I want people to be helped. I don't want people to have to suffer. And this is what Brother Branham would have taught. When Brother Branham went to South Africa, the brothers over there, because of H.G. Lake's teachings, they didn't believe in aspirins or medicine, anything else, and they asked Brother Branham, what would you do if your son Billy Paul had a headache? And Brother Branham said, well, if it wasn't serious, I'd give him an aspirin. And I mean, some of those people turned him down because he'd taken aspirin. There's no righteousness in that. It's the faith you have. We know who the healer is. The medicine that you take is just the chemical that God uses to help what there's happening in the body. And I don't know where that fits in or anything or not, but you knew Lila. And,
yes.
and as long as I could get her the pills every 6 months, Lila enjoyed this. Because up there in that area, in the wintertime, y'all only have about 2 hours of daylight.
Yes, that's true.
From 2 to 4.
From 2 to 4.
Lived in the dark all the time.
In December 21st, we only got 2 hours daylight.
And then in the summertime, you got 22 hours daylight.
June 21st is the longest. June 21st.
You got 22 hours of daylight.
Yes.
But in the wintertime, you've only got a couple of hours of daylight.
Yeah.
That's very depressing, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Because if you don't have electricity, you're living in the dark. That's why my sister there, Sister Sonia? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say it. Yeah. She was so gracious, she's so understanding, spiritual. Anyway, we went to the store and we got them some candles. Now, they'll appreciate that very much.
You bought some candles here.
Candles from here, from Tucson.
Imagine. To take back up there.
Yes.
Because Maggie still lives in the dark sometimes.
Yes.
Huh?
And then she goes to the argue with Walter because she got no light. And Walter's trying to console her. No, dear, you know. And they share little candles like this up there. They borrow from one another to get ready for bed. because they're 142 miles north of Fort Nelson. That's the closest door they got. And
142 miles from the closest store.
So if we want
sure
to...
don't run next door for a loaf of bread, do you?
Oh, we've got no neighbors, not up there, no, you don't.
And Maggie and them still live back in there?
Yes.
And sleep on a Bruce Brow.
Well, the government built them houses now.
Oh, built them houses.
Yeah, for the winter. But in the summertime, they still they live the same way. In the wintertime, too, they do. They live out in the cold. They just bank in the snow around them. That's why I was saying the University of Vancouver is studying their lifestyle.
Some students come there and stay to observe their lifestyle.
To observe the lifestyle. Yeah.
We've got some pictures of the area there.
Yes.
So let's see if we got another one here.
No, that's where the prophet used to camp with the Southwick, and that's right by the road where the Southwick camp used to be.
Okay, this was the road there. This is an area.
No, this is just the trail, the foot trail that goes down to the foot trail that goes down to where the Indian prophet lived. You can walk down here. There's no bears here because there's no vegetation for what the bear eats. Right here's the rainbow. Here is where...
There is the rainbow right there, okay?
And here's the Alaska Highway going right under...
The Alaska Highway is the other side of the tree.
There.
Okay.
And every morning that rainbow comes over like that. It's beautiful. Where the prophet used to camp. I'm sure you were in there too, yes. And just to honor what God says, to remind the people that there was a prophet among you, yes. We've got no excuse, yes. And here's my family.
Now that's the camp. Now this is their refrigerator. Mm-hmm. That's where they store their food, and that's the tent that they live under. But these are members of her family, and she'll identify them for you.
Yes. That's Rose. I don't know who their visitors are, tell you the truth. Here's Mom, and there's Dad.
Now that's your mom sitting right there?
Yes.
Okay.
And there's Dad. He's always teasing Mom about a matter.
That's your dad there.
And this is Joe who gone on. And here's Angus.
Angus now, he was there.
Yes.
He's the one who asked, I want to receive the Holy Ghost.
Yes, he's the one that's...
and Brother Branham said...
Son, receive it right now.
Now, he's also the one that walked on the water.
Yes, he did. And here's Maggie, who's deaf, and this is Walter. They're both deaf.
That's a brother and sister, and they're both deaf. They speak to others, not with a regular sign language, but they've got their own.
She goes from the camp, she walked 2.5 miles to get water every day with a pail. This one here. So Walter
still does that now?
Yes, and Walter's trying to discourage her from doing it because, he was trying to, now they got 4-wheeler and everything. He was trying to make everything easier for her. But the more he tried, the harder she act, I think she wants him to feel sorry for her or something. I don't know what it is. And anyway, they're cute. They argue back and forth.
Yeah, you mentioned the other night that they argued.
Yes. Walter had a power plant.
A power plant.
And they were watching this show, a Western show.
A movie.
A movie.
Shoot them up. People killed.
People were dying. And Walter and Maggie were horrified. So many people died. And
reality.
Yeah, they believe it. They thought they're real dead. And so Maggie was saying to him, he said, how do I get up there? And Walter said, oh no, he said, you won't. He said, it's crowded upstairs. And he didn't argue with her, and I think she borrowed something from him, and she didn't want to bring it back. And he turned around to her and said, if you don't bring back that cup, he said, you'll be going downstairs. So here's Walter, a man like St. Peter that never didn't know his right hand or left hand. He believed there's only heaven and hell. And here's the Catholic priest coming around telling them there's a purgatory, but I never interpret that for them because you know yourself, there's no purgatory. There's only two ways. Yes. This is what they believe. People that never heard the gospel in their life, they know there's only heaven and hell.
Yeah.
If you do wrong, you go downstairs. If you do right, you go upstairs.
Now, did either one of them, did anybody ever teach them sign language? It's not the regular sign language they communicate with. You explained to us, pastors, the other day, they do it with facial expressions and their things.
Yes.
Now, like if they're surprised, they do what? You said they...
If I was asking Walter, this happened quite often. My husband doesn't understand them. Like he said, Walter, he showed me something, I don't know what it is, and I'll say, he was watching my mouth. It said, "What did you say?" This is what it means. My mouth wide open, like, what did you tell him? It's just no word, it's just sign. And he reads my lip, and then he tells me, I wanted him to buy the battery because my flashlight need a battery, or my power plant is running out of spark plug, something like that. He said that's what I was trying to tell him.
And these two still live in the wilderness?
Yes, they still live in the wilderness.
And they communicate to each other?
Yes.
Probably more than anybody else?
Yes, they do.
And they had a power plant so they could watch a movie?
Somebody gave them some worldly movies.
War movies or westerns?
Yeah, it's something they shouldn't have.
But we're going to send them some good Christians.
Yes, and there was a Christian that gave them something about heaven or something. And Rose and Walter were watching this show. And they looked so humble, And Rose went quiet. I said, "What happened?" He said, "It's all about up there, she said. And Walter, too, he said, they'd seen Jesus die on a cross or something. They thought it was the most horrible thing they ever seen. And they were saying, why did they put him on a cross, They didn't understand, Somebody gave them a video. I don't know who did. Maybe the Clemency did. I don't know. Somebody did, by God's grace. And they loved that show more than the one that were, movies. Western movies, they call it? Yeah, Western shows. Yeah.
Now, they still sleep on this Bruce brow. We can't see but that Bruce brow that's out there.
Yes.
And they cover with like horse blankets or something.
Yes.
And then pull a tarp over them to keep the moisture off.
Yes, that's right.
They still live like that?
Yes, they still live like that.
Didn't you tell me they want to be baptized also?
Yes, they do. Rose had been baptized, so did Maggie. Rose was baptized by Billy Paul, Mom and Dad too, and Maggie was baptized too, but he was someplace in a bush, and he was out on a hunt when Billy Paul came.
So
and
Walter and Angus wants to be baptized?
Yeah, Walter and Angus,
and
these
Russ.
two, and Russ.
Okay. You understand, they store their food stores up here to keep the wolves and the bears out.
That's what they call meat poles.
Okay.
They call poles.
Next one.
No, this is, I went to residential school. These are the children I went to school with.
When she was
That's
5,
me.
the government took her and sent her to a school.
I'm right here. Some of them went on. This is
Which
my
one is you?
brother right here.
You are the biggest one?
Yeah, I'm the biggest one.
Oh.
Here's Eddie right here. That's my brother.
That's your brother?
Yes. And all the rest. This is the chief's daughter. Patsy Bain, Richard, and Elaine. They're all brother and sisters. Lucy Neatley and Janet Dickey. Janet is a nurse. She's a nurse in Vancouver, this one here.
Well, you must have been about 13 there.
About. Lucy, she just, her son got shot last year.
Are these people still living? Adults?
No, Pat went on. She died of cancer.
Okay.
He's the chief's son. He's living. Richard Bain, Lucy Neatley, she's still living. Elaine is still living. And Janet. Eddie was killed in a car crash. in a pickup accident.
Okay. Next one.
Now, this is the poster. You'll see this everywhere in Canada, maybe in here too, I don't know. This is my mom and dad's cabin. This is Sheep Creek. Here's their tents. And here's Dad standing in front of the cabin.
That's your dad right
yes.
there.
And this is what they call cache, to keep food stored up in there so the bears won't get into it. They leave it like that for 2 or 3 months so they could go to another hunting area. And then later on they come back and they know everything is still there. So this is the same mountain where the prophet, this is right here, it would be about here.
This is that same mountain that
yes,
rainbow
that same
right
mountain.
over there.
Yes, that's
okay.
the same mountain.
Okay. Now, is this part of the area that's in question now about the
yes,
Yukon
it is.
tribe
yes, it
and
is.
the Beaver tribe?
Yes, it is.
And your folks have lived in here about 400 years.
Yes.
And the Yukon tribe is trying to claim that.
Well, the government said the band that wins get $2.8 million. So this is why we're talking about testimony of the word. I don't think land claim is too important, to tell you the truth. I was telling them at the meeting, because I was one of the counselors, I said, why don't you choose Jesus Christ first? And then he'll tell you what to choose. And they told me to get out. I was dismissed. Or they said, you're no longer a counselor. But I had to be there because I got to speak up for my people. It's the only reason I'm involved. Other than that, for myself, I wouldn't worry about it, because what's going to happen if they gain the whole world and you know what it says, huh? Yes.
Sounds like she's got the priorities straight anyway, doesn't it? Next one.
Your thing is, now, I don't know, somebody today said this is end of the lake, this is what they call. This here runs into the toad here. This turns into a river after. That's where the Toad River come from. Here's where we live, right here. There's cabins up there. And the lake, as it goes up like this, it gets wider. It's 3 miles across. Here, I wouldn't know. Here was the camp, and Angus was right here in the willow brush. And he was trying to get across from here, and he was waving for somebody to pick him up. And in the times past, he had been what the Canadians would say into the sauce, which is drinking. And they thought he had been drinking, so they ignored him. So he went back into the willows here, into the bush, and said a simple prayer. He said, Lord, when St. Peter wanted to go to you, he said, you help him. He said, you help him walk across the water. He said, I just want to get across. See, after he gets across, he's still got to walk along here. He's still got to go 5 miles to his cabin. That's why he was in need. He was urgent. It's important that he gets back to the cabin because... So that's a simple prayer he said, and so he just walked across here to where the rescue camp.
He's on this side.
He was on this
side.
Over there.
They're
over there.
He walks across here.
Yes.
And they examine his shoes and they're not wet.
Yeah, they examine his shoes and and it's not wet.
And they saw this.
They saw this. Yes.
And what effect did it have on him?
Well, George couldn't read the Bible. Now, this is just in the family. I shouldn't say this, but it doesn't matter because we're on testimony. So he gave Eddie the Bible because Eddie went to residential school and said, could you find out where St. Peter walked across? He said, that's what he said. In a times past, Angus was trying to convert his brother, but George wouldn't listen. So George approached Angus and said, he said, St. Peter fell in the water. He said, but how did you do it? He said, well, St. Peter, he was looking the wrong direction. That's why he fell in the water. He said, at me, he said, I just asked him, I just want to go, just walk across. He said, that's all I did. And he said to George, he said, just like you, he said, when I tell you come to the Lord, he said, you're too busy looking for Susie. He said, that's his girlfriend. So that's the end of the subject.
You know, the prophet says, when you ask the Lord for something.
We don't say this to laugh or to make fun. This is how my brothers talk to one another. This is how they, family conversation. You know?
And Brother Branham said, check your motive.
Yes.
You want to be healed. Now, there was something else about that when Brother Branham sent you the Bible, he sent you a picture of himself from Houston.
Yes.
And your brothers kidded you about having a boyfriend. And your mother did what?
He laid a law down. Yes.
Your mother told her sons.
He said, you can teach her about any boyfriend. He said, this is the prophet. He said, I don't want to hear any word out of you. And that was it. Yeah.
Sounded like her mother had a revelation. Okay, next one. Oh, I asked you the other night what the name of that peak was back there, that pyramid, and you told me it had a name.
Diamond.
Diamond.
There's diamonds all around that mountain.
Diamonds?
Diamonds, this one here.
Can we go hunting?
Now we go hunting, yes. Right here.
That peak here?
Yeah. Right there around there.
Have you climbed or hiked in these mountains?
Yes, I did. Yes. Joe killed a caribou up there, and he sent Rose and I to go and bring it down. Yeah. Imagine, instead of him packing it down, we had to go. Well, he said he was busy anyway. Maybe he was making an excuse, I don't know.
Isn't that the way it is? White men sort of ruined it. The Indian had all you women do all the work. We come along and ruined that, didn't we?
Yes.
Taught the wrong culture. The next one, please.
Now, this is Walter. He's the one that, he's deaf and he can't speak English. He speaks his language. This is where they live. And here's the Alaska Highway just down below here, all the way up here. And this is my late brother George. He has gone on to be with the Lord. And this is where they live. Walter's cabin would be here, and Maggie and Rose would be over here somewhere. Yeah.
Okay.
And so when I say I'm going up to 442, this is where I'm going, on Alaska Highway, right here.
Next one.
Oh.
Now, here's their mansion.
Yes. Oh, in them days when Russ was unbeliever, God showed him a sign. I went through these.
Her husband was an unbeliever, but God showed him a sign here.
Mm-hmm. There was a pillar of fire over here, right there. He's the only one that saw it. And one morning he got me. He said, "I want you to see something." He said, "Now see this camp here. It's in the wilderness. Would never have any bear trouble, grizzly, nothing. Just perfect, yes."
But Russ was there, and he witnessed a pillar of fire over this.
And he said to me, he said, "I want you to notice something." He said, "There's something strange here," he said. "Oh." And I said, "Oh, what do you mean?" And he said, "Remember that pillar of fire we're talking about?" He said, "It's over this tent," he said. Yeah, he took a picture of it. It's in a picture. Yeah, if you stand here and you're looking toward this way, you'll see it. It's right over this here. The pillar of fire was on the God honor the camp. And in there I have written, I don't know why, a sister asked me, said, "Do you always write scripture. I said, well, sometime this was written in our camp. Before we go camping, I wrote this verse here. Brother Green, if you would be just please, just read through your...
It's Numbers chapter 10, verse 34, 35, 36. Numbers chapter 10, verse 34, 35, 36. And the cloud of the Lord was upon them by day when they went out of the camp. And it came to pass when the ark set forward that Moses said, Rise up, Lord, and let thine enemies be scattered, and let them that hate thee flee before thee. And when it rested, he said, Return, O Lord, unto the many thousands of Israel. And you wrote this verse of Scripture.
Yes.
And you took comfort from that. You took that personal, huh?
Yes. And
Wonderful.
I just wanted to be over the camp and just for protection. And of course, the enemy wouldn't let that be. So they destroy our camp. It's not there anymore. But like he said...
You mean, when the government...
No.
Okay.
It's just the people, our family did it. Our family did. They were on drugs.
I
So
see.
they hated that camp. Wherever the Lord is, the enemy is, it's up. You'll always run into those things until Jesus comes. So, and when they did, there was 3 of them pass away. All of a sudden, with no warning. I didn't do it. The Lord did. He will avenge his saint speedily, it's written. I didn't do it.
You need to read that scripture. Touch not mine anointed.
Yes. God honored, his word.
Okay.
So,
Next one.
now, these are the ones that saw the bear come. There's Rose, Maggie, and Walter, our cousin Peter's dome. In the background is a moose hide Rose is working on to make into moccasins to sell in a store, so she could get more.
Moose hide, okay.
Mm-hmm. These people were there in that Christie Summit when the bear approached the camp. They seen it.
When you were 7. That's
when
in
I was
1951.
7. Yeah, and these 2 are the ones that argue every morning. And Rose, she's how you say she's got authority or some dominant or something?
Dominant?
Yes.
Okay.
And when we camp with them, we can't go anywhere unless we ask permit. And she treats us like 2 years old. One day, Russ jumped in a truck and took off to Montreux Lake. And I was there in a yard, and he said, where did he go? I said, he just went for a ride. I never thought anything of it. Next day, we went for a drive, and when we come back, she's standing in a yard with an angry look on her face and said, how come you guys didn't tell me where you were going?
She's your older sister?
Yes.
I got one like that.
No.
I imagine Sam is listening tonight too. So.
I hope not.
Next one.
Now, here's Angus. Hopefully it would. Here's Angus.
That's Angus on the end?
Russ.
And
Russ in the center. And
Russ is your husband?
Yes. And this one is his cabin, George's cabin.
Okay.
And he's the one that asked for the Holy Ghost. He asked Brother Branham. And they take this pail here, they go to the creek, about 3 miles away, to get water.
And bring that back with water?
Yes, with water. And
well, that's
that's
about
supposed
50,
to last all day,
that's
but
about
sometimes
50
we
pounds.
don't.
Y'all got running water, but just 3 miles away, huh?
Yeah, but Walter when they camp, for Maggie's sake, they try to camp by the creek so she can just run back and forth. Huh? And one time they did. She was criticizing him because it was too easy for her. She wanted a long walk, so she wouldn't know what she was doing. Huh?
Well, when I went to Bud and Lila's camp at mile 442, there was running water in their cabin. Now, Bud had went up the hill, and there was a place up there where there was a spring or something, and he took a large pipe, and he laid it in there, and then he reduced it down, and for several hundred yards, he had run a small pipe, and run it in into that cabin, and it went into the sink, and the water ran 24 hours a day.
Wow.
Down the hill, into the sink, and outside. So Lila didn't have to go get water. She just went to the sink and got it. So they had modern conveniences there.
At that time.
And no water bill.
No water bill, yeah.
Good, fresh mountain water. All right, next one.
No, this is Rose. She's at mile 9.
There's her spruce brown mattress.
Well, Vicky and Dan, they've been to this camp many a time to bring them stuff, They go up there with 4-wheelers, 9 miles in the wilderness. Here, this is where she's sitting. That's where she sleeps. So this is her pet dog. And here's the spruce boughs Brother Green was telling you about. And this is her grocery. She covered up at night.
They make these blankets?
No, the people, they give them, it's given to them by people. It's like the university students, when they come up, they buy them presents. That's what they were showering me with. Like some, maybe perfume or something that they don't use. So maybe I should turn around and shower somebody else with it. Or like Russ said, you should have a garage sale.
But that's your sister Maggie?
That's Rose.
Rose, okay.
Yes.
All right. And she lives there alone?
No, Maggie's bed is on the other side.
Okay.
This is just her where she sleeps. Maggie's bed would be here.
Okay.
They sleep side by side with the grocery in the center. Here's the campfire here somewhere, right here in the front.
You have a camera? That's something we need to send home with you as a camera.
Oh, wow, I got the kind that is foldable and not a camera.
We'll get her a camera. How many think she ought to have a camera? So she can get on her laptop computer out there and get on the internet.
Yes.
We can see what the next one.
Now, these are my friends. She's very worldly. This is Jeannie Burke, Henry Collette. He's from France. That's Russ here. Here's Summit Lake. This is what it looked like right now. On Alaska Highway, runs right here. Here's Alaska Highway.
That's a lake up there, and
yes.
This is a highway running along here.
Yeah, this is Alaska Highway.
And this is sort of like a rest stop alongside the highway.
And
with some kind of a memorial marker here?
Yes, it's something like it's a history of the area. When the armies went through 1942, it's all written on this.
Now, but the Yukon tribe wants this highway to go back to the wilderness, don't they?
Yes, and they want this whole area. Our ancestors are buried beyond this mountain here, in the mountains here.
Now, talking about burial, Brother Branham mentioned something about some of the people there are buried in logs. Was that a custom, a tradition of your people to bury some of the people that passed on into logs and put them in the trees?
Oh no, that's Teslan people do that. They call them tilted. They do it so the spirit can claim them. They bury them in the trees.
Okay, how did your people in turn?
They put them in the if there's a cave, that's where they lay them.
Okay.
There. And you see these brushes that Rose is sitting on, because there's no actual any object to get to make cemetery. How you say it?
A grave?
The grave.
Yeah.
So most of the ancestors, they just cover one another with these brushes. They cover their face and everything. That's how that.
And that's how they interned them.
Yes, that's how they interned them.
Well, do the animals get to them?
I don't know. I just it's hard to say. Just.
But they would call a death by a bear or something a good death, wouldn't they?
Yes.
That to them, there wouldn't be anything gruesome about for a man to be killed by a bear or something. They feel like his spirit would be all right.
Yes.
Now, where's your mother and father buried?
Up in the mountains, right at Sheep Creek.
Sheep Creek.
It's only a knoll, but